Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Campfire Council podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and being here and listening. Unfortunately, we are too short today. We had to make some staff cuts. They didn't quite make it, Milo and Noah. But no, we're just kidding. They were not able to make it tonight, unfortunately. So it's going to be the three of us doing this podcast. But Brandon, if you want to go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. So today I want to talk about a little something that I actually didn't know about. I didn't know what this word meant as of like 4 weeks ago, basically. But it's the word lamenting. It's a very, very important thing to know, I think, as Christians, because it just kind of takes your relationship with God a little bit deeper. And so what lamenting is a passionate, what do we say? A passionate,
Oh, wow. You had it.
Exactly. Oh, dude, I lost it.
Exactly.
Oh, shoot.
How
Okay,
we
a
express
passionate
pain.
expression. There it is.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Ready?
Yeah, dial it in.
A passionate expression of sorrow and mourning.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you guys just want to start off. If you guys have any thoughts about that. We all watched a little video on that, but
Yeah, I didn't know too much about lamenting either until a few Sundays ago when we heard the message about it. I've heard the word before, but I don't know if I've ever heard a message on it going into like that depth. So I think it was really cool to learn a lot more about it, which I know for sure I needed to learn more about that. But
I was thinking that lamenting and repenting were kind of similar. Like I thought it was kind of one and the same. Like I never really made like the difference between the two. So like going into it, that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
I don't know why, but
Yeah, maybe lamenting can lead to repenting or
could.
vice versa, maybe? No, not vice versa.
I have the turntables.
Ooh.
There you go.
But yeah, I think it's important to realize that lamenting is just allowing yourself to have those vulnerable times with God and really just be able to come before Him and just say, God, I don't understand like your plan. I don't understand why you're allowing this to happen in my life. But I think as long as we come back and we realize that we just need to trust in His plan, maybe it's something that in the moment we're not going to, and I think that's okay. But I think just working towards it is the important part.
And we've all been there too, time and time again of lamenting and just working through those questions, those really, really hard questions of like, what is happening? Like you feel like your entire universe is collapsing in front of you and you're just crying out to God. And when lamenting doesn't feel like it's working, that's where you can kind of fall down that rabbit hole of like, God, do you hear me right now? Like, where are you? Like those questions start to come into fruition.
And I think something too is there's been times where now understanding what lamenting is more, where you kind of think back to when you were and you feel like you're not supposed to be doing that. But I think lamenting is a good thing to do, and expressing yourself and getting those thoughts, those questions and your feelings out to God in a healthy way is good. And we need to do that. So
especially as guys, because we always are known for like holding back our emotions. And then we get to that boiling point and then we just, at least for me, like I can think of so many times of like, no, it's fine. Just sweep it right underneath the rug. And like, I just keep doing that over and over and over again. And then it reaches certain points where like, I'll just break down like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like there's been plenty of times where you've just like, you've like heard me crying or something, at our house, or like, it's just kind of random, but after so many like years even, or weeks, months go by of like kind of just shoving it underneath the blanket or underneath the rug rather, and just putting it off is no bueno.
Yeah. Kind of like what you're saying. I feel like in the past, I always thought that was wrong when I've like questioned God. I've always thought that, oh, I just need to trust in God more. I just need to pray more. Like this just means that my faith just isn't like there or something. But it's because your faith is so strong that now you're reaching a point where you can question God, and you're not just thinking because that's what you grew up learning. Now you're thinking for yourself as an independent Christian. You're asking the hard questions. You're not just following the crowd.
Yeah. And it's important too to know, like you're saying, Joey, is when you get to the point of like bottling everything up, that's when it can become an issue of not knowing how to express your feelings and your thoughts when you have those questions towards God, because I don't know everything. We don't know everything. And like, I know it's a surprise, right? So like to have those questions and to like go to him with those questions. And sometimes if you're frustrated about it, like that's okay. And we're going to be frustrated because otherwise if we bottle it up, it's going to, everything, our feelings and emotions are going to spill out over time in a very negative way probably.
And I think when it gets frustrating like that, we need to also take the time to be silent, to listen to God. Because if we're just asking God all of these questions, and like it's good to air them out, but if we feel like we're not getting an answer and all we're doing is just asking questions, we're not like giving that, that set time aside to be silent, to be still, to really actively listen to God, just whether it's 5-10 minutes. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think an important thing to realize is that it's not a good way to look at Christianity as like, if you have these questions, like I said, like you just need to pray more. You just need to trust in God more. Like I have talked with people that are like that. And it's, first of all, it kind of closes that door with those people, because now you don't really want to be vulnerable with them because they're just going to shut it down. They're not going to validate you. And it just makes it a little bit more difficult, because then you start feeling it on your heart like, oh, maybe I do just need to like trust in God more, and maybe I'm just not there. But it's also important to know that like God wants you to lament. God wants you to come before him and ask those questions. He's not going to strike you down. He's not going to send you to hell because you're questioning him. Like it shows that you're trying and you're struggling to know. But like you said, you do have to kind of hit a point where you can't just keep questioning God and then you just don't get the answers, and then you know.
Yeah, I've had to do that in my life where it's like it kind of gets depressing of like you keep asking for, let's say, a certain thing to happen or for him to show you something, and you keep like wondering like, when is God going to show me this, right? And you wait for however long, not long enough, because I think that's what we're going to talk about a little bit later about waiting. But yeah, it can get depressing of you feel like you're just waiting on God and you're just waiting for that answer, and it's not coming to you. But
think about the story of Job. I mean, he had the most horrific things happen to him with losing everything. I know we touched on this a few episodes ago too a little bit, but losing his entire family, all of his wealth, his livestock, everything that he owned. And it shows later in Job that he, in a way, he's lamenting too. Like he's trying to figure out, why is God allowing these things to happen to him when he's been a faithful servant that followed Christ? And that's the way of lamenting. Like he's questioning, like, why God did you allow this to happen? And he's trying to work out these things of, he's expressing himself to God. I think it's a great example of things that we can do. I mean, that's a huge extreme. Hopefully we don't have anything like that ever happen in our lives, but
I don't have any cattle, so I think I'll be good.
Not yet. We don't have any cattle yet.
It's true.
Yeah. One day we'll
Could
get a
always
farm.
get one. These two have been talking about getting a dog like in the future. I'm all for getting cattle. You don't need a dog. You don't need a dog.
Just gonna double down on the whole cattle thing.
Yeah.
How many cattle?
All right.
At least 6.
Okay.
I would say at least.
How many do you think back
number.
in the day though that like an average
Dude,
family would have, like household?
I mean, probably like 50 or something, maybe more.
But
that was
if you're
probably
poor,
like their.
What?
But what if you're poor?
Oh, average family?
Yeah, like back in Job's day, like.
I
I mean, I think Job he was pretty well off.
He
right?
was a very wealthy man.
Yeah,
Okay,
he probably had like 100.
Well, he's an exception then.
They said like it was like in the hundreds. It was like 700.
That Job had.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
they like mentioned cattle. I think donkey, camels, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you need so many camels.
Yeah, what do camels do?
They walk around with water in their backs.
What do camels do?
What are they? Dude, could I fight a camel? All right, moving on. So yeah, kind of going off of Job here. There are a few stories. There's David, Habakkuk, Elijah, Job, and Jesus, and that's just a few of them across the Bible, from Old to New Testament, that engage in lamenting. David, it's in Psalms, I think it was in the service, was, he's crying out to God. Elijah, I have the verse somewhere, if you'll allow me to find it.
Somewhere.
Yeah, please fill in the moment of silence.
Yeah,
here
I'll just
with that.
start singing.
It's 1 King 19. I don't know if you guys know this story where Elijah is basically being hunted because of his faith, and he's like crying out to God. He's like, just kill me. Like, I'm the only one that's praising you, Lord.
Oh, it's a queen hunting him.
Oh, the queen. The queen.
I don't know what queen it is.
The queen. No, not the queen, but some queen.
Yeah.
It's like,
I believe it's a queen hunting him though.
yeah. And so he's crying out to God. He's just like, please just kill me. Like, it'd be better off if I was dead. And so that's an example of Elijah. He was lamenting before God, and in the end, he's one of the 3 people in the Bible that ascend to heaven without dying. His is pretty baller. He just like a chariot of fire just rolls up. Like,
Oh,
can you
that's the
imagine
story.
that? Yeah.
Okay.
So in that story, I think it's in 1 King 19, he's called to do multiple things. He's called to like eat and then travel a really far distance for like 40 days or something. And the important thing, he's lamenting, so he's questioning God, and he's depressed, he's begging for death, but he's still following what God wants him to do. And in the end, even though he was lamenting, even though he was questioning God, in the end, God still granted him that amazing miracle of like flying up to heaven. Like,
Imagine rolling up to heaven like that.
yeah, just being like, "What's up, guys?" Like, in your chariot of fire. Yeah. What were the other ones? Habakkuk, David. Oh, Jesus. Even Jesus was lamenting in the Garden of Gethsemane, like right before he was going to be taken. He's basically saying, like, Lord, if there's any other way that you can do this, before he was about to be crucified and killed, he knows it's going to happen. He's crying out to God, if there's any way you can take away this cup from me, like, please do it. But he says, your will be done. And so, again, in all these characters, they trust. And in the end, Job, he gets his fortune multiplied like tenfold or something. And so I think that's the important point that we should try to make, that it's okay to question God, but don't let it take away from being a disciple. And
yeah. I was going to say, too, don't, like this example of Job, don't expect examples like that where we go through hardships of,
right.
Oh, this happened to me, I lost this, I'm struggling with this, and now I'm going to receive this in return. Like, that's not the way to look at it. I mean, we were talking about last night about, let's see if I'm going to mess this up. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Oh, he got it.
There we go.
Meshach, Sheshach,
Meshach, and away we go.
There you go.
So in that story, I lost my train of thought.
That's all right. Furnace.
And then they were saved?
I completely lost what I was going to say.
All right. That's okay.
We can move on. It'll come back to me.
What if we talk about...
Is it about lamenting?
Probably.
Like, I mean, that was a dumb question. I mean, was it
my
about
thought was here and it's just gone.
Nah, it's all right. That happens.
Yeah.
All right. Should we?
Like, let's talk about like lamenting with people and then lamenting alone.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
feel like
I don't really have an
okay.
order of this. So I'm like, look at my notes right here. So.
No, I mean, which do you guys feel like you do better in? Because personally, I think I do better alone. And I feel like over the past couple of years, I've noticed that about myself, of just whether it's, taking time away from work and then going somewhere, or if it's just as simple as just going to the beach or doing one of my hobbies alone, whether it's disc golf or skateboarding or looking for rocks. Just having that time alone, I feel like that's when it just kind of just happens. But I think for me, I do best when it's alone. But I also think that it's important for me to do it with, like you guys, people that I trust, mature Christians. So I don't know. What do you guys, how do you?
I would say for me, it's a little bit of both. I don't think I can say which one is better for me or which one works best. I think more often it's on my own because I'll just be like driving and I'll just kind of like break down or something. And so in that moment I can just lament and be like, why? Like, I think it was at the beginning of the semester. I was like that video that you're always quoting, like, it took you 6 seconds. Like, I was in my head, I was like, I'm in week 3 and I'm already like in the muck. Like, Are you kidding me?
Well,
I'm like, God, like, why? Like, week 3, are you joking me? And so it's just kind of in those drives, because I have like a 30-minute commute, that it's just like more often, I would say, just when you're alone with your thoughts and with God. But I will say it's nice to be able to hear other people's perspectives. And when you get to say it out loud in front of other people and you get to hear what their perspective is about the situation, like, I know with my fiance sometimes, like,
Careful.
What?
Just be careful.
Oh yeah, don't want to spill any secrets. No secrets. But it's just in the past when we've like had like something that we've been lamenting over, basically, or like a hardship in our lives or whatever. And we come to each other and we're like, yo, like, this is what's going on. And then the other person's just like, oh, like, when you say it out loud, all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's actually not as bad as I thought. Like, when you say it, I'm never going to be like, nah, it's not that bad. But like, when I've come to her before and I say it out loud, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm chilling. Like, this is actually not so bad. Like, things aren't so bad.
Didn't that happen last night with Christina? She was lamenting about something, and then
her presentation.
Presentation, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I would say for me, I'm kind of similar, where I think I prefer on my own at first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if a thought comes up, if an issue where I feel like I need to express myself or like have my questions for God, get it out in the air, like on my car rides to work or something. And then if I feel like it's still on my heart and I feel it necessary to like bring it up to you guys or something, then I'll lament with you guys who I trust.
I think for me, it's just easier because maybe not easier, but it's harder for me to express myself sometimes when I'm talking to people. Like, I can't always explain how I feel or what is going through my head with God, and I feel like it's just harder sometimes to like.
Journaling really helps with that.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good one, because then sometimes when you're just like, sometimes when I'll just speak in the car, I kind of lose my thoughts or whatever, or maybe then my mindset kind of like deviates to something else that's unrelated.
To do that, yeah.
So kind of journaling helps you can look back at your thoughts and be like, oh yeah, that's right, this is where I was going with that. So I think that's a good one.
Do we think there's a better way, either do it by yourself or in a community? I know it. Actually, I'll leave it at that. Do we think it's better to lament on your own with Christ in private, or do we think it's better to lament with appropriate, mature Christians?
It might depend on what you're lamenting over. You know, if you're lamenting over like a hard question that you have about God, because we all have questions, we all have doubts, I think, every once in a while, or maybe very often. Sometimes I just have some like you know, you get that thought, you're like, is this what I'm believing? Is this real? Is this real? And so when you have other questions and you want to seek someone that maybe has more knowledge on it, or maybe they've gone through that season of life, I think that can be helpful. I know Milo, he's very knowledgeable of like apologetics and stuff like that. And so I think with conversations in the past, like, he's definitely been someone I can turn to when I have questions like that. But maybe if it's something more personal, or I don't know, maybe it'd be better just to talk with, like, keep it between just you and God. But yeah.
I like that answer. Yeah.
I think about day-to-day issues too that we encounter. I don't know if it's necessary to like throw everything on the table for your family and friends. I think some things are very necessary, and it's important to get out there to let them know, like, hey, this is going on. I'm struggling with this. But I think also, too, sometimes things might just be between you and Christ, things that he's working on in your heart, and maybe he'll place it on your heart to talk to, you know, a group of people that you trust or an individual that you might trust. And yeah, I just think that there's things maybe like between you and Christ, and then things that he's like, you know, you should share this with your community of faith that you trust, and they can help walk beside you with that.
I like that.
Yeah, I think a big point that we should make today is choosing those right people too. Because I've had in the past where I just kind of like rant in front of like the wrong people, and then I hear about it from somebody else that wasn't there, and I'm like, oh great. So
Dude,
it's
this
like
guy just rants all the time.
Brandon?
me? Yeah, dude.
Oh,
I just let loose. Whoa,
That was a nice crack.
crispy.
That was
Whoa,
crispy.
that was nice. I wasn't
That was a
expecting
lot,
that.
yeah.
So you don't. I think you can ask people different questions. You can have conversations with whoever you want. Like, I'm not going to tell you who's right and wrong, but if you feel that you're not getting the validation that you think maybe you deserve with such a hard topic, maybe try finding some different people. Like you guys, I could tell you anything. I could come before you with anything, and I would. I mean, thus far, you guys have been pretty good about things, and you reach out to me.
It takes time, right? Because like, how many years have like we known each other?
Dude,
and
It's over 3 now.
Yeah. And at first you were like a little hesitant to be open, which is totally fair because you've been burned in the past.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. And I just always remember like the first, like
Yeah, dude,
probably
I
within like the
remember
first
this.
month or so, I was like, I'm going to crack this guy open. Like, I need to
You
know
said-
more about Brandon.
What did you say? You're like,
I want to find out the real you.
Yeah,
or
you
something
said
like
something
that.
like that, and I was like, wow.
Because like I was just genuinely like just curious because I wanted to get to know you better.
That's crazy. Look at us now.
I know, right? Who would have
Who would have
thought?
thought?
Who'd
Not
have
me.
thought? Not me. Yeah. So
But it takes time.
yeah, it takes time,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely very selective with the people that I lament to, and maybe I'll lament to different people about different topics, but not with other people that I know. So it's all just kind of you gotta pick the
Judgment.
right people. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta pick the right people, because Jesus, when that same story in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's asking the disciples like, can you just please pray? Obviously they fall short. Job, I was gonna bring him up. I just thought about this when
Hold on
he
one
was
second.
lamenting.
Luke would be the first to fall asleep.
Oh,
you think so?
100%.
If he would have been one of the disciples
Noah.
Oh,
That's
Noah,
true.
yeah,
No,
I would
Noah
be shortly after.
because he'd
Luke
be
and Noah
like,
would fall asleep
like
very quickly.
Jesus would like just be walking away, and Noah would be like,
As soon
With
as
sleepy
as
eyes.
I saw Noah's asleep, I would be like, oh, screw it, I'm
I
going.
feel
Yeah.
like the episode 7 or 8, somewhere around there, Noah looks a little sleepy. So go back and watch.
yeah,
And see
call
if
him
you can-
out,
yeah,
call him out, put some hate in the chat, put some hate in the chat. Now we love Noah. In that story, Job, he comes before some people, and they're like not good people to lament him around, right?
His friends. He has 3. I believe it's 3 friends, and they do an okay job of. They have different points of view, but overall, yeah, I don't know if they did the best job of responding to Job lamenting. It's I'm trying to recall everything from the story, but I just remember there's a lot of different points of view and angles that they're taking.
Yeah.
But it does go back to with kind of like what you guys were saying with when we met Brandon and everything. It goes back to knowing the people that you can trust and abide in and lean on when it comes to lamenting. It comes to back to spiritual disciplines of accountability, right? Like this past year for sure, we've been working on accountability, which I think is super necessary if you are a follower of Christ and you want to grow closer and you want to walk alongside your friends, your family, your brothers and sisters in Christ. It's super important to, and you're not going to be able to with everyone, but find that small circle. Maybe it's just one person, maybe it's a few, but find at least someone that you can learn to trust and they can trust you when it comes to accountability, because it goes a long way, and you're going to fall together and you're going to climb up that mountain together. And it's through that you get to grow close with that person. And that's like such a huge blessing from God. Like just think about like the friends, the family you have in your life. Like that's such a big blessing. And that's what a true friend should be striving for, is you want to see that person succeed. in everything in life, especially with their walk with Christ. And that comes with you holding them accountable and vice versa. But it takes time. It takes building relationship. It takes falling and failing together. And it takes succeeding together.
Yeah. Yeah, because I never had a group like you guys before, like, I guess 2 years ago, I think is when we really connected over the men's retreat. Like before
that was fun.
That was a blast. That was a blast. But yeah, I remember there was at one point I was really, really struggling with something, whether it be school or just like life in general. And this was before you guys, and I was like, wow, I just feel like I don't really have anyone to turn to right now, because the people that were in my life right now, they were the people that I didn't want to lament to, or I didn't feel like I would get the right validation that I deserved. And so looking back at that, like I remember I was like in my kitchen, I'm like, who do I even turn to right now? Like, of course I can talk with God, and I think that's very important. Like, we should not always rely, not immediately go to people, like have that moment, have that silence with God. But just like, I don't know, I felt like I don't know who to turn to right now. I don't want to talk to my parents about this. I don't want to talk to my friends about this. This is before Christina, so yeah. But it's just nice looking back at that, seeing you guys now, and yeah.
That's why community is so important, and I'm so big on community. I mean, I would not be here today without the people that God placed in my life, who have blessed me and encouraged me and helped me every step of the way. But if you're looking to grow your faith, or you're curious and you want to just better yourself in that area, like find a good community, whether that's a good church, Bible study, just good Christian friends, like God-fearing, loving people in your life, and build those relationships, because life is going to hit, and it's going to hit hard. And I'm sure a lot of people know this, and or if you don't, one day it'll probably happen. And having people around you that can be there for when you need to lament is super important. Because like Brandon, like you're saying, that can be a dangerous situation when you don't know where to turn or who to turn to, when you have things that you want to get off your chest, that you want to express. And like we're saying before, it's so important to not let it bottle up, because it's going to overflow. That we can get that out there in a healthy way, like going to the gym. It's a great way to relieve stress and everything. But it's, this is more of a spiritual thing that we need to have. One, Christ to go to, but also a community, because God did not design us to be on this walk alone.
Yeah. And kind of taking this in a little bit more of a modern lens with mental health, I think it's important for us not only to be able to come before other people, but encourage others to maybe bring up their troubles as well. My quick side note here, my sister just had a friend who took their life, and it's just a terrible thing. She's 17 years old, and so this is like definitely very young, and I know that you're very familiar with that too, so I know that it's just like, I mean, I don't know personally, so I'm just gonna like leave this to you, but like I'm sure it's just very uncomfortable, and at such a young age you're just kind of like why, like it may feel unfair or might feel difficult. And so she said that she didn't know that the person was even struggling. And so it's important for us to just reach out, be like, hey, whatever you're going through, like I am truly here for you. Like, please, like and maybe it's even something that we can schedule time to like talk with them. And because a lot of times people will just say like, oh yeah, let me know if you need anything or whatever, but really just taking action and being like, no, like let's talk or something. And I hope that I maybe have an opportunity to do something like that, because mental health in this day and age it's a very difficult thing, and it leads to difficult choices that people make. So I think that the cure to that is to really be reaching out to each other and to be praying over people. If we can't maybe directly help them, because we're not like certified therapists or whatever, like maybe just praying over them. And yeah.
So what does it look like when we're lamenting to God and we we don't necessarily hear him or see things play out, how do we respond? So we know that God works in the unseen, meaning that he has our future planned ahead. I mean, yes, we make choices and we have free will. But where was I going with that?
No, I got you. Like,
How do we respond if we don't hear God or we don't see any results from us lamenting or talking to Christ? How do we respond to that?
Yeah, because God isn't like ignoring you, right? Because God's not evil, and He doesn't allow evil things to happen to you, right? Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
He allows a certain level of pain and struggle because He knows that we either are, maybe not.
So I would
just
be
say
a little careful.
You,
because,
yeah,
like,
you know
doesn't-
what I'm trying to say.
I personally believe he doesn't cause bad thing. I know this was a bit of a topic of discussion, maybe that we had a little bit
I don't know
of
how to word it.
disagreement last podcast. I don't personally believe that God causes things like that, like bad things to happen. I think that's the flaw in, like, if we're talking about disease, I think it's a flaw in the human body. If it's something in society that's broken, I think that's the person who, again, just with that mental health, like maybe didn't get the right resources or had a not good support system. I think that's the flaw in like the person. I don't think God is the one, but I do think he allows bad things
that's what I was going to say. Because if we look back in Scripture, at like Job, for example, the Israelites getting wiped out multiple times because of their not obeying Christ, or other nations because they worshiping false idols. So I think I'm glad you clarified that.
Thanks.
God can allow, like he allowed Satan to test Job, which I think is a good thing to understand the difference between those.
Yeah,
because he can use that pain and that suffering for his will. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I look to my life and going through grief, it's like God has really changed me in big ways, ways that you've probably seen over the years of like how I've been able to mature, have more perspective, and have more gratitude for life. And so he's used, that's like I always say it's like some of the good things that come out of going through grief is that perspective, the maturity, and just making you more grateful for life. So he can use these scenarios. I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, and I think for maybe those that are curious about Christ, maybe those who are completely cut off to Christ, maybe those bad things that happen in their life allow them to kind of have that kickstart to then question, like, why is this happening? Like, why are these bad things happening? We say like, oh, I'm a good person. Like, why are these bad things happening? Like, or maybe that person's a good person and now they have an illness or something. Like, they didn't deserve that. And just kind of going back to that question of like, what do you do when you don't see results? And I'm just gonna real quick finish up this thought is pray. I know it's like the easy way out. It's like, oh, really? You just want me to pray? But like, that's your way of communicating with God. And you're not going to hear a voice back. I mean, I know some people have had like dreams or whatever, but I personally haven't had one of those. And so you can't expect that if you pray enough times, like it's just going to poof. And again, going back to your story with Job, it's not like if you tough it out, then everything's going to be fixed in the end and you're going to get more than what you went in with. But dive into Scripture, just find like a couple verses or maybe just one verse that you can just kind of turn to in those tough times. I have a couple that we can refer to later. But that is just kind of...
Do you have a go-to verse in a tough time?
I do, yeah. Here, lean not on your own understanding. I don't have that one memorized, but do you have one while I'm looking this up?
I was just going to say, I probably forgot all, but 2 Timothy 2:17, and he stood by my side and gave me strength.
Oh, yeah.
And I
classic.
Can't really recall the rest of it right now, but that beginning part is sometimes is all I need is, and he stood by my side and gave me strength.
Yeah.
Which is, can get you through some hard times for me at least. But
I like that imagery too of him being by your side. Like imagine in every scenario of your life where you're on the ground and you're just broken. Like maybe you're at the deathbed of somebody, or again, real
chills.
Yeah, we're like getting deep here. We're getting deep. Just imagine God behind you, like with his hand on your shoulder, like right there, standing by your side, and he's with you.
And whether you want it or not, whether you reach out to accept his hand or not, like his hand is right there. Yeah. And one thing going back to your question of how do we navigate when we go to Christ, we give him our pain, our suffering, our questions, and we don't feel like we're getting any response, any change, any answers. I know it like you're saying, one is just pray and be as real as you can. God wants your authentic selves because he knows everything, and you don't need to put on a show. You don't need to act your best. You don't need to just be you and let God know how you're feeling. But back to the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it says in chapter 3, like we were going over last night, in the story where they're commanded to bow down to King Nebuchadnezzar, who was the most powerful man in the entire world at the time, king of Babylon, incredible empire. This huge gold statue is made, and they're commanded to bow down to it. And these three guys are like, no, like we're not. That's against what God commands us to do. Like we're only going to worship the one true God. So he gets all mad. He tosses them into a flaming furnace. But right before they say, we're not going to bow down to your God because our God will deliver us. And then they go on to say, but if he does not, we will still not bow down to your gods. And I think that part right there is really important, is when we go to Christ and we talk to him, let him know how I feel. It's like we need to believe that God will change our circumstances, but we need to know that he isn't always going to. And that's such an important thing that I'm going to be struggling with for a while. And I think that was a huge eye-opener of reading through that. If you guys haven't, go to Daniel chapter 3, read that whole chapter. Incredible story with the three men that are put in the flaming furnace and they survive because Jesus is with them. But just knowing that God is all powerful and he's God, we're not. And he knows everything. And if he sees it fit within his will, he can and will change it. But we need to understand that that's not always going to happen. And it's going to suck because life sucks and it's going to hit us hard. But that's just something we need to bite down on. And if we can have that mindset, I think it's going to make life a little bit easier for us to navigate.
Yeah, I think that goes into our last podcast about godly patience and just waiting. I think that's crucial, because if you don't allow that time to wait, how do you expect to hear anything?
If you're just doing all this,
right.
There's no time to.
What did Jason say in the sermon? You have 2 eyes, 1 mouth,
Use
or
them.
2
ears, one. Did you say
1
two?
mouth? How many ears do you have? I just had a Mexico trip recently, and we were learning Spanish, and one of our phrases was "menos hablar," and then "más escuchar," which is less talking, more listening.
Nice.
So
Huge.
for the Spanish-speaking community out there, if we have any of those.
And one thing to bring her back here too is, and I know it's such a frustrating answer of like us saying.
You kind of say frustrating weird, and that's frustrating.
What? Wait, say it.
Frustrating?
It's been bothering me for so long. I can't hold it in any longer.
That'll be the next.
Now I
That'll
feel
be the next
self-conscious about
That'll be the next podcast.
All right,
we can edit
skip
that
that word.
Yeah.
Just say mad.
It's just been.
What?
I'm sorry. We can get past it.
Say the word for me.
Frustrating.
Frustrating.
I don't hear it.
You said like frustrating. Frustrating.
Frustrating?
Did
I?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that was so frustrating.
It was frustrating.
I just couldn't.
All right.
I couldn't handle it. Okay.
Okay, so
I'm airing my grievances. I'm lamenting.
I think it's important to know that I understand when we say these things of, oh, just do this or try that. But one thing too is I'm not always there. I'm sure I can speak for all of us. Like we're not any better than anyone out there.
Yeah, let's nail that point in, is that
Like
we're struggling. We're struggling. I have no way of saying, like, I'm not saying this like you need to be better. You just need to pray more. Like that, like I said at the beginning, like I think that's a toxic relationship.
And just because we say it does not mean we're doing 100% all the time.
Right.
I can promise you, like we're struggling and we need to work on things just as much as anyone out there listening or watching. But one thing to do that's going to help is continue your faith journey walk with Christ. You know, when we go to God with things and we're like, why aren't we hearing? Why isn't he responding? And it's just not going the way you think it's going to be. Understand that spending more time with Christ, being in community with faith, reading scripture, praying, these are things that are going to help mature you as a Christian and grow your faith. And these things are going to slowly start to fall together. I'm not saying everything's going to make sense. I'm not saying life's going to be easier, but it's going to help us to understand our relationship with Christ more. And it's going to bring us one step closer to being like Christ.
I think that's why it's so good that we started this podcast, is because it's really pushed me to take notes, to find Bible verses, to really think about these topics, about what we're going to talk about, and kind of like the reasoning and
Frustrating.
Fuss.
Also, real quick shout out to Joey, because I was a dumb, stupid, dumb idiot.
Why?
I sent the wrong video in the chat.
Yeah, dude,
so
check it.
This man, he watched 3 different services and took notes on all 3 until I was able to send the right one and prepare for this. So.
But that was, that's what I'm saying, is like I didn't have to do it, right? But I want to be better. And so I know that in order to be better, I need to take these steps and put in the work. It's like going to the gym, right? Putting in the work of getting into the word, right? And praying and lamenting and just keeping God, on the focus of your mind, like the forefront of your brain.
What do you think about for anything? You tell people you're auditioning for a movie or something, or you are doing something big, eyes are going to be on you. And right now we have eyes on us. And I think that's a good thing, because back to accountability, like we are here talking about our faith and we have people listening and watching it. And for me, at least, like that's going to help me keep it, myself accountable. And 100%. I don't want to just say things and say these things out here, recorded on YouTube, whatever, where people can listen to it and not follow through with them.
Not live it.
Like I'd be a hypocrite, and I have, and at times I am. I don't 100% always follow every single commandment that God tells us to do, but I want to be better.
Yeah.
And I know by doing this with you guys and having, like people can comment, throw things in the chat, the comments. And ask questions. If you guys feel like we're saying something wrong, like check us. We'll call us out. Like we need that. Like we want to make sure that we aren't leading people down the wrong path. The goal of this is to have fun and just have a good time. Like this is a blast. I super blessed and happy that we got to do the opportunity. Just even if no people were watching. Like
I would still do it.
Like it's still a lot of fun, and it's like call us out if we say something that's not biblical or maybe leading people down the wrong path.
Yeah, we are not scholars by any means. We're just 3 dudes that drink
like energy drinks, and we're nerdy and
eat fruit gushers.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I would rather have not saying we're ever gonna blow up. I don't think a lot of people are gonna. But like I would rather have 10 people consistently listen and hopefully get something out of it than have 10,000 that might just listen and tune in for a little bit and tune out. The goal is to spread the gospel, like be disciples through this while still having a really fun time making a podcast. So feel free to chime in,
Yeah. Kind of circling back to what you're talking about, I do want to point out something that I recently saw on, I don't know, YouTube or something, I'm not sure. When you were talking about how we don't want to be hypocrites, this really opened my eyes, because I actually do believe this is true. Christianity itself is a bit hypocritical. Like, we are called to call people out, to rebuke people, but we ourselves are sinful in nature. And obviously we should be trying to be better, but like that kind of opened my eyes that it is a hypocrisy, but Christ was not a hypocrite. He lived it. He spoke it, he lived it, he preached it. Like, if you don't believe Christianity or any of that, if you're just like, I don't like it, I don't like all the things they ask me to do, like, follow Christ. That's important. And I know Christianity is based off of Christ, but they are a little bit separate, because it's like the teachings are based off of Christ, but Christ himself, like, lived the life that Christ did. Even if, I think you and I were having a conversation about this, like, just the lifestyle of Jesus, even if you don't believe that he died and rose again, like, the things that he preached and the way that he lived is a good way to live.
Well, you think like American Christianity, I would say, is a lot different than following Christ. If you think of like the modern Christianity, if you have people that say they follow Christ, but they aren't doing anything to further their faith, or they choose, and I've been in the boat. This is something I've been working on the past few years of like, I'm going to follow these things that Christ commands me, but these things I'm going to hold on to. And these are things that I'm going to do it my way. And
that's like cherry picking.
Exactly. And like, that's where you can make yourself feel good that, I'm going to church, I'm going to Bible study, I'm volunteering, but these things, these struggles, I'm going to hold on to. And that's something I'm still working on myself. And that's cherry picking, that's hypocrisy. And like, that's not someone I want to be, but I would say that's different. That's kind of like an American, Christianity, like kind of how that looks like compared to following Christ, by striving to be like Christ, like when he was here on earth, being selfless, loving everyone, speaking kind words to people, encouraging others, keeping people accountable, being a disciple, spreading the word, all those things. And it's not easy, but one step at a time.
Yeah, I've got a few Bible verses here, just because I even get overwhelmed sometimes when trying to search for like a Bible verse to memorize or to like dig deep into. But for viewers at home, and I do want to try to memorize this one, but you were just kind of asking like what's a go-to verse. So first one is Proverbs 3. That was the one I was thinking of, is trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. I think that's a great one. And then Isaiah 55 says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. And this is really powerful. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Like, God, he's like on a supreme, like he's beyond our comprehension. And that's why I sometimes have questions about God, because it's so outside of my understanding, and he's just so powerful that he can see like the difficult times we're going to go to, and he sees that if we stick with him, maybe it stays bad and maybe life just sucks, but like he sees that where you can turn to him, like where in his relationship with you, like it'll strengthen. And I just think that's so cool. Like he's really just like saying like, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours. Like, and it's not in like an egotistical way at all, or like a prideful way. It's just straight up like, I am God and you are not.
And that's why it's okay to not know things. I know nothing.
Relatively speaking.
Everything you guys have heard, just don't listen to Luke. He knows like nothing.
The Bible's so complex. The following Christ is not easy.
Unreal.
I know nothing.
And that's why it's so important, and it's good to go to Christ with these questions. Like, it's okay to not understand, but do your work to try to understand those questions. If you have questions, go to Christ. Go to a mature follower of Christ that you trust, where you can try to understand these things. And some things we're just never going to know because, like you're saying, Brandon, God is God and we're not.
Yeah.
And he knows everything, and we may not know those things.
Yeah.
But he wants us to go to him with these things. He wants to know our feelings, our thoughts, things that we're struggling with, things that are going well, like things that we're happy about in life, that we're blessed with. Like, he wants to hear that because he wants relationship with us as well. And that's incredible. The most powerful thing you can imagine wants to have a relationship with you. He wants to have that conversation with you. And to me, that's really cool. And I want to, that's something I want to work on as well, just being better, more authentic, more open with lamenting and going to Christ alone, and then with like you guys or community with Christians that I trust.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Oh, there you go.
Not the Pokemon.
No, the Pokemon. You meant the Pokemon.
Also,
Ditto.
I was biting my tongue so hard. When you were talking about
Oh no.
Christ understanding, just like directing everything, I was thinking he's like the ultimate Palpatine.
Oh, there you go. But like
He's-
good Palpatine.
Yeah, and he's just directing, just deceiving the Republic and having his schemes and
There you
just
go.
Order 66.
Right.
Can I just
For all
eat
you
these
servers.
on air?
Eat these
Actually,
on air.
yeah, please just make this like a quick ASMR session while I real quick look through my notes and see if there's anything else.
Okay. My hands are
I guess while you're looking through your
Lotion.
notes too, we'll kind of maybe dig deep again here. But is there anything that examples that we might have for?
got it. Okay. Chill.
Are there any
Viewers don't
examples that we
understand.
might have, either currently or in the past, that we might want to share, that we have lamented about, or that we currently are, where we're struggling, or
Yeah.
Can you run that through one more time? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we're too busy
He was
eating
just
your
too-
fruit gushers over there.
Smacking them gushers.
My question was, is there anything current or in the past when it comes to lamenting that we have struggled with, we lamented, and it turned out the way we expected it to? And examples, things that related to lamenting, either now or in the past, that
So I know I've said this like a billion times on this podcast, but I'm still in school right now, so it's just kind of like the most relevant to me right now. Long story short, last year, I was in my last year of school, and my school shut down 5 weeks before. I mean, they let us finish our semester, but they told us 5 weeks before the end of the semester, like, hey, by the way, you don't have a place to go next semester. And I was like, oh, sweet.
that's huge.
It was massive. So then I moved to this school, which last semester I had major beef with, like major beef with. This semester is a little bit better, but now I just got to go on this amazing mission trip that they were taking us down to Mexico for free. Wait, what?
No gracias.
Oh no.
We'll talk about that one maybe another day.
Maybe never.
No gracias, no gracias. But it was just, oh my gosh, like I had no expectations going into it. And it was just this beautiful experience to just be able to go to another country and be just in another environment where you can't drink tap water. You can't flush toilet paper down, the toilet, like simple things like that you just don't think about in your day to day. So we got to go to the first day, it was just at this homeless community, and the people that we saw there, I mean, they were laughing amongst each other, they were joking around, like they didn't look miserable, and it was just such a beautiful thing. Like they have so much less than what we have, and it just kind of gave me another perspective. Like I do want to be more appreciative of the things that I have, and I met some incredible people. I got closer with a lot of people that I already knew, and I met a ton of new people. And so during the closure of Cardinal Stretch, I was going through it. I was like, there's no future. I was actually at one point like, I'm gonna have to start over at like a whole new degree. I'm gonna have to like do something crazy or like take years off. But so I was definitely like, I had minimal amounts of trust in what God's plan was. And then last semester when I was struggling as well, but I never, and I do take pride in this, I never stopped believing that God was going to get me through it. And I think at this point, I had you guys at this point. All right, I just had to verify.
Back pocket.
Yeah. I had Christina, I had my family, and so it was definitely something that in the moment I didn't understand. I'm like, why would you do this? Like, or not God, but like, why would this close, right as I'm about to finish? But it gave me this incredible experience in Mexico. And so when I was talking to my parents about this, they're like, yeah, now we see that this is like a big reason why. Like God saw this was going to happen. It was in your books.
Yeah, it's weird to see God working when we can't see it, right? So like we go through these things in life where we're just like completely thrown back. You're like, my school's closing. Like next year, like what am I gonna do? Like, yeah, you had like this crisis of you have no idea what's gonna happen, but God was with you there the entire time. He just had a different route.
Yeah.
What about the times, piggybacking off of that, where we are going through those hard times, we're struggling, and we just have our heads down the entire time? Mm-hmm. And there's blessings left and right happening in front of us, but we're so fixed on what's going wrong that we're not willing or open to see what Christ is doing. Because I know in my life that's happened. I'll try to think of an example, but Christ moves in any and every way. And even through the hard times or the good times, Christ can still use those things to better our lives, to bless us. I'm not saying he always will. He can. He has the ability to. And it's just sometimes we're just so fixed on, why is this happening? I'm so fixed on this bad thing that we're not willing to open our eyes and make the best of the situation that we're in. And that can change just your mindset and perspective on those things too. And then there's times where later down in the road, you look back and you see pieces of those things, which is really cool too. We're like,
where they fall into place.
Yeah.
Oh, it's incredible.
But if we could just be more willing and aware of these things, to keep an eye out that, we're in the dirt, but we have God besides us, and, he loves us and he cares for us, and not saying that we're always going to be blessed in every turn of life, but, if we're willing to work with what we have and trust in God and go with it, we might see more blessings come from it than if we just have our head down the entire time. So an example, I guess, for me, several years ago, for those of you who don't know, I love fitness, going to the gym, huge passion of mine.
Fitness every day?
Fitness every day. So for a while, my dream, you could say, dream job was like, I'm going to become a trainer. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm a young college student. Like, I could have a career for training people. And I got certified as a personal trainer. I put in the time for the studying, learn the material. And I was like, all right, this is it. Like, I can, and also the opportunity too that I had. I worked at Planet Fitness for a while. I was not necessarily a personal trainer, but like a more group trainer, where I had the opportunity to work with people, and the conversations that would flow, that would just bring up conversation of Christ, was incredible. It came super easy. Just being in the gym for me, it's really natural. And I was like, this is perfect. I love doing this. I have a passion for this. I'm able to build relationships with people, and there's so many times where they just would ask me questions about my faith, and it was just like, this is awesome. Like, I just can just easily talk to them and get to know them. So like, this is perfect. This is what I'm going to do. And I started applying for personal trainer jobs, and I must have applied for between probably 40 and 60
oh my gosh,
personal trainer jobs, and a lot of them were like online too. Sometimes I'd applied a couple times at the same one where it opened and closed. And I went to several interviews, sometimes multiple interviews for one one personal trainer position, and every single time it was turned down. And I was like, dude, what the heck, God? Like, this is what I want to do. Like, I feel like I'm pretty good. I'm not the best trainer, but I'm young and I can learn, and I have the opportunity to have conversations about you. Like, I can be a disciple and this comes so natural. Like, why aren't you letting me do this? And for a while, like, I just struggled with it. I was like, this doesn't make sense. This is what I'm supposed to do. And in a way, like, I was lamenting. I didn't really know about it, but I was expressing myself to Christ, and I was angry. Like, this is something that I want to do. But looking back on it, God didn't want me to be there. And I don't necessarily know for exactly what reason right now, but I know that Christ has a plan for me, and it wasn't to be a trainer. And I know that I understand too that any position I have doesn't have to be personal trainer, that I can still be a disciple. I can still talk to others about Christ, not just in the gym. And like I said, I don't know what his plan is for that too, but I just know that was an example of me just being super frustrated, putting the time, the effort, getting certified, going to those interviews and just getting shut down time after time. But God is God, and I'm not, and he knows my future, and he's bigger than that. And I was upset at the time, and now I'm understanding, I'm okay with it, and I'm excited to see what is going to happen in the future, that God has in store for me. So
Very cool.
But do we have any
That's all right. If you don't have one, that's fine.
any more
That's all
questions
on
or
the docket.
anything that
The docket today.
we wanted to throw out there?
In it.
This is a great topic.
This is good. It's fun.
Able to learn more too, and especially with that message that Pastor Jason gave of just.
Should we throw it in the link?
We can throw in the link.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
If you guys want to
Shout
check
out.
out a great message on lamenting that I took a lot away from, and I think a lot of people would be able to. We will throw the link in there.
Yeah, we never
You
want to
guys
steal
can check
credit.
that
So
out. Yeah. Yeah, and same thing too. Like, things we talk about, like, go do your research too. If we are wrong, if you think we're wrong, let us know. We would love to check ourselves, because we are on the same journey as you guys are on, and our goal is to be one step closer to Christ each and every day. And we're gonna fail, we're gonna fall down, but
And you can watch us do it.
yeah, you'll be able to.
it's all on
you'll
YouTube.
be able to watch us do it.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
And it comes back to community. It comes back to building those relationships with people and being able to trust those to lament in, and also, lamenting in Christ. But off of that, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Campfire Council Podcast.
So frustrating.
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 I just had to say it, Luke. I'm sorry. I had to.